Hey, this is Tony Falzone, the Motivated Medic. You are listening to the Motivated Medic podcast. Today's episode is about identity and where your identity is. So stay tuned. Good Friday afternoon, everybody. Today I want to talk to you about identity. And we hear a lot about, identifying and everything else like that. I want to talk about what your identity is in. And that can be anything from, it can range anywhere from your career. Your identity lies in your career. It can be your skills as a paramedic, as a police officer, as a soldier, as a teacher. Whatever you do, whatever your specialty is. A lot of times we focus so much on our education, on our training, and eventually who we define ourselves as falls into what we do. That's how we define who we are. But I want to kind of bring this around to where if your identity if who you define yourself is entrenched in your career, is entrenched in your spouse, is entrenched in your children, or is even entrenched in things like social media, or maybe it's a position or a role that you play in somebody else's life or along with your career, you're going to fall flat on your face. You will be disappointed time and time again. Why? Because your identity should not be in what you do, what you accomplish, or who you love as far as, relationships are concerned. What does identity affect? And where are the roots? Where do they go into? It's heart, mind, soul, and strength. Your heart, it's, what you're passionate about, where your passion lies. Your mind, what are you mentally, what's in your mental framework, and where does it thrive? What is your mental state coming from? Your soul, what is your soul entrenched in? What is it? Where are the roots at for your soul? And then your strength, that can be your physical strength, your physical abilities, your skills, the things that we do on the ambulance or on the helicopter. Where does your strength come from? It doesn't come from your career. It doesn't come from other people, although we may think it does. We may think our heart, our passion for life comes from other people. It doesn't. It affects other people, but it doesn't come from other people. And all these things, we talk about self-care and doing things for ourselves to help improve and things of that nature. I really think what that means is, or what it should mean, is we are really focusing in on what really matters, the heart, mind, body, and soul. And where is that rooted? I've been reading a book by Arianna Huffington. She's the founder of the Huffington Post, and the book is entitled Thrive. And she put a quote in her book, and it's just kind of going over some of the, the issues in talking about redefining success. And one of the little statements she put out there: while she didn't have any real friends, she had 600 Facebook friends. And she dealt with every email in her inbox every night. And this has to do with Arianna Huffington is talking about redefining success and what we see as success. And I see that as a direct correlation to what and who we identify as. As far as how we look at success has everything to do with our identity. If our identity is entrenched with our career, we're going to view success as, okay, we got that promotion. Okay, we got that account in line. We made this succeeded this profit margin. We saved that patient with our skills because we increased the amount of education that we were, initially going after. And all of that has to do with, our identity and how we identify ourselves. We have to reevaluate where identity lies, because if we are placing our sole identity in what we do, or who we work with, or who we're married to, we will come up short every single time. Every time. And you can do your own soul searching on this. My identity is not in my wife. My identity isn't being a flight paramedic. My identity isn't being a motivated medic that has a podcast. My identity is entrenched in my faith in Christ. And that's where my identity lies. Like I said, I don't know where you are on faith and what your belief system is, but if your identity is in something that is temporary, your identity is in something that has a lot of variables and waivers, your heart, mind, soul, and body will always be missing the mark. You'll always be missing it. And then, conversely, you won't be able to have the impact with your neighbor, with your spouse, with your kids. And when I say neighbor, I mean that as somebody that's not you. So somebody that you have a relationship with, and it could be your actual neighbor. But I'm using this in the reference of somebody that you love deeply, like your spouse, like your children, like your parents. It could be that relationship with the colleague that you have that you've been trying to foster. It could be, the relationship with your patients. You will not be able to reach the people that you truly are passionate about if your identity lies in something that is temporary. If your identity lies in somebody that is wrong or somebody that's negative. Maybe your identity is so contorted that it has seated itself in negative behavior or a negative job or a negative individual. And by way of that, you've become a very negative person. And that's all you do, that's all you think about, and that's who you are. It's kind of like, what we talk about with your gut health. What you eat directly affects how you're able to think, how you're able to sleep. It affects you. And in the spiritual sense, in the soul-searching sense, what you consume through your mind, body, soul, and in your heart, what you consume, that's what you become. And you may not think, oh, my identity isn't in my work. That's crazy talk. Is it really? Is it really? Is it really that crazy? Is it really crazy to think that you have not put your identity and you have not invested who you are into what you do? Is it really crazy to think that? I've been in emergency services since 2001. Right before 9/11, I joined the Hopewell Fire Department in Hopewell, New Jersey. And from that point to now, I've been involved in some capacity, whether it's fire or EMS. 19 years. It's crazy to think about. With that investment, 19 years of my life, it's very difficult to say your identity doesn't lie in something that you've invested that much time in. Because, newsflash, we have distractions in our life, and those distractions can be good things. Your career, that's a good thing. What you're doing, how you're serving, that's a good thing. I mean, for crying out loud, even looking at a church or a not-for-profit organization that does good things for good people, that can be a distraction in your life, and it can pull you away from how you're identifying and who you're identifying as, and getting down to who you are and where that comes from, you'll be able to really figure some things out once you look yourself in the mirror and say, where's my heart? Where am I putting my thoughts? When I have free time, and we all have free time, whether you like to think of it or not, what's my go-to in that free time? Is it on social media? Am I constantly vying for the attention of other people? Is it, my work? Am I constantly checking emails, even when I'm home and I'm not on shift? Constantly checking emails, or complaining about work, complaining about the stresses and how my boss does this, and this coworker I can't stand because they're so annoying, because yada 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 yada. And you go on this rampage because you've allowed those distractions to come into your focus of who you should be focusing on and how you are identifying yourself. As you go through this weekend, as you go through the rest of this week, I want you to look at your identity. And just remember, with how we identify will determine our discipline and the truth, or what we define as truth. And with that will directly affect the freedom that we have in our life. I met with a very, very good friend of mine, Dr. Drew Randall. He's a college professor, and he married my wife and I. He was our preacher for our wedding, and he and I were talking. We meet almost weekly, and he said something today. It was really profound, but it's very simple. Freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want. Freedom is the ability to say, I don't have to. Let me say that again. Freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want. Freedom is the ability to say, I don't have to. I don't have to have that drink. I don't have to shoot up tonight. I don't have to have a bad attitude when I see this patient for the third time this week. I don't have to eat that donut. I don't have to. And you fill in the blank. That's freedom. Being able to say no is freedom. I don't have to look at that trash on TV. I don't have to continually be wrapped up in pornography or whatever other kinds of stuff that's causing a negative behavior and negative actions in my life. I don't have to keep on seeing that other woman that's not my wife, or that other man that's not my husband. There's freedom in seeking truth. Now, with that truth, we still have the consequences of our actions, right? You smash your thumb with a hammer, and you're like, man, I'm never going to do that again. Does saying that take the pain away and your throbbing thumb? No, it hurts. But you make a conscious decision of, like, I'm not going to put my hand there next time when I go to put some nails into a board. I'm not going to be in the presence of these people that continually bash me and my family, or I'm gonna do something to change where I'm at by saying, no, I'm not going to do this behavior anymore, and this is what I'm going to do in place of it. As a thing, remember, you can say no, and there's freedom in that, but now you have to inject and input positive behavior. And that's where the battle is. That's where the warrior grows up. When you start to take that negative behavior and you stop that negative behavior, and you develop things that that a warrior mindset has, and understanding that this is a battle. Every single day is a battle. I'm an alcoholic. I'm not personally alcoholic. I'm just saying, if for those of you that are alcoholics and you say, I'm an alcoholic, and I know that every single day is a battle to stay away from the drink, to stay away from the bar, to stay away from gambling, to stay away from drugs. Every single day, and even it might be moments, every single moment, depending on where you're at, is a battle. And your life may be more of a battle than others. So others may not have it that difficult. Maybe they have not succumbed to drug addiction or alcoholism or sexual addiction or pornography or financial infidelity. That might not be you. But you're a human being, and human beings are imperfect. So you are going to have, it might be gossip. It might be, certain behavior towards your children or towards your spouse or even towards your maybe you're stealing something at work. Maybe you're a kleptomaniac. You're constantly stealing and taking from work or from somebody. One of the first things that you can do is acknowledge the fact that you have a problem. And the next thing in the journey of fixing that problem is saying, I have freedom in saying no. I don't have to. Because freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want. That's not freedom. It's kind of like, a lie. Somebody tells a lie versus telling the truth. Well, you think about a lie. What's the narrative for a lie? Well, you've got to be consistent with it. And there are people out there that are consistent with their lies. One of these times, they're not consistent. I mean, how much stress and heartache on you by lying to yourself instead of saying and telling yourself the truth of, I'm an addict. I'm an abusive spouse. I'm an abusive clinician. Let's go there. I'm an abusive clinician. How many of you verbally abuse your patients or maybe the people you work with? And I'm not doing this to point a finger and say, oh, you are a horrible person, because I've got just as many, if I've got more fingers pointing back at myself to call myself out. But I'm talking about all this to get out there of, with our identity, depending on how we go about our identity, we either have freedom or we have bondage. We're enslaved to something negative. And that produces negative behavior. Even if you try to not be negative, it produces negative behavior. Ladies and gentlemen, I love being a paramedic. I love taking care of people. I absolutely love caring for people when they are not only at their worst state or potentially worst state physically, but they're vulnerable. Some patients they have nothing left to give to try to help themselves, and that's where we come in. Same thing with law enforcement. You have somebody that's with criminal activity. They've done all the stuff as far as criminal, and they're in a bad spot. And some of you really do. I know some of you law enforcement officers out there love being a law enforcement officer because it gives you an opportunity to make a difference in somebody's life, and hopefully with your actions and with your words and how you interact with that individual, that criminal, maybe that will help them decide to do things differently. That will help them to change how they identify, what their identity lies in. Maybe you're a teacher, and your identity is so wrapped up in what you do and being able to teach and everything. The people, the students that you impact with your words and your actions and your demeanor with your classroom, I mean, how much further is that going to carry as these kids become adults and they're able to think and do for themselves? Your words and your actions, your interaction with their parents or whoever their guardian is, how is that going to impact their life? And you love what you do with that. But how you identify is going to be it's going to be the biggest impact in how you are able to reach those people. So if you don't have your heart right and your mind right and your soul right and your strength right, if those things are not rooted where they should be, you can forget the rest. You can forget it making an impact. Because freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want. It's not the ability for your heart and your passion to be doing whatever it wants and toting yourself like you're the king or queen of everything, of everybody, and going out with one girl one night and another girl another night. You need to rein that back in and remember where your identity needs to be. And like I said, only you can do the soul searching on that. I can't do it for you. Your mama can't do it for you. Your wife can't do it for you. Your husband can't do it for you. Your kids can't do it for you. That's you. You got to take the initiative and take ownership of where you're at in order to make an impact. If you want to make an impact, and if you truly love what you do, or if you have that desire to really love what you do and you hate where you're at. I've been there. I remember looking at the ambulance out from the our base where our quarters was, and I would look at that truck and I absolutely hated where I was. So much so that I actually looked at getting my CDL. I was in medic school. I'll never forget. I was an EMT. I was in medic school. We were kind of changing up stations, and the work environment wasn't exactly the greatest at the time, just because there was transition, there was growth, and with growth you have those growing pains. Well, my identity had gotten so wrapped up in what I did, I'd become so burned out, and I hated looking at that ambulance. I had hated what I had become, and I hated what I had to do. I didn't have to do it. I got to do it. It was a privilege to be able to do it. And I see that more now than ever. You get to do it. It's a gift. Don't lose focus of the gift that you've been given. You need to be a good steward of that gift and look at how you identify in your heart, mind, soul, and your strength. Now, let me reiterate to you that you have a purpose here. You've got a purpose. I mean, you are meant to be here. You're meant to do something great with your life, with the life that you've been given. I mean, your life is a gift. Not to mention all the things that you have, all the talents and abilities that you have that nobody else does. Because everybody has their own fingerprint in this world of things that you can do differently than somebody else that will help reach somebody else on a relational level. You'll be able to meet somebody where they're at and help them through something, whether it's because of what you've been through or just because of the individual that you are and the character that you possess, that you've been given. You have a purpose here. So don't negate that because you're in a rough spot right now. So be intentional with your life by getting down to the brass tacks, getting down to the inner you, the inner being of who you are, and look at where does your identity lie. I hope you're having a good week this week, and if you're not, let me know. Let somebody know. Have that tough conversation of, man, I'm struggling, and I just don't know what to do anymore. I really don't. I'm wounded. I'm hurt. I'm lost. I'm miserable. and I don't know where to turn. Talk to somebody that cares for you. And if you don't have anybody that cares for you, email me, email Daniel. Let somebody know that you're having a tough time, and you're having a tough time finding meaning and purpose in your life. And I'll help you walk through the things that need to be done and the things that you need to be doing to help regain that passion for the mission that you have with your life. Because everybody has one. Sometimes we just don't realize it. So I hope you have if you are having a good week, continue to have a good week and continue to make an impact where you're at. Whether it's with your family, with your patients, with whatever job you're in. Make an impact. And don't forget that freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want. Freedom is the ability to say, I don't have to. Everybody be safe. Have a great week. Be savvy. Be a motivated medic, a motivated individual. Until next time, this is Tony, the Motivated Medic, signing out.